Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Shaun, and today I'm going to be talking about reviewing the recently released The Equalizer 3.
9 seconds. That's what I'll give you to decide your fate.
The film is directed by Antoine Fuqua. It's written by Richard Wenk, Michael Sloan, and Richard Lindheim. It stars Denzel Washington, Dakota Fanning, and Eugenio Mastrandia, amongst others. The logline plot synopsis is Robert McCall finds himself at home in southern Italy, but he discovers his friends are under the control of local crime bosses. As events turn deadly, McCall knows what he has to do. Become his friend's protector by taking on the Mafia.
Do I look like a killer?
So anyways, yeah, oh boy, I was excited for The Equalizer 3. I don't know why. You know, I think it happened like I turned like 35, like a switch flipped. And suddenly I was like, I became my father. You know, I refer to movies like this. It's kind of like the Equalizer movies, all the Liam Neeson movies, kind of generic action movies, Extraction, which I actually watched recently. It was actually a lot of fun. I call those dad-core cinema. They're the kind of movies that my dad probably really would have wanted to see for some reason. You know, just because it was an action movie paired with a familiar actor that he really liked. You know, like Denzel being one of them. You know, some early dad-core cinema in Denzel's career. The Siege. Doesn't get much more dad-core cinema than The Siege, okay? So I was really looking forward to this. I kind of really love the first two Equalizers. While I think Equalizer 2 almost feels like an Elseworlds tale. It feels like it almost belongs in another timeline. Equalizer 1 and Equalizer 3 have like a very similar kind of vibe and tone. They're much closer together. It feels like a real sequel to that movie. Whereas 2 kind of is a little lighter. It's a little sillier. Denzel's got hair in that one. Big mistake. Big mistake, by the way. It just lightens him up too much. He was even a little pudgy in The Equalizer 2, which I respect. I respect the fucking hell out of Denzel Washington being like, no, dude, I'm like a 55, 60-year-old man. I can have a little punch. Even though he did slim down a little bit for The Equalizer 3. But I'm a fan of the series. I've enjoyed them for what they are. I think they're kind of like middling, okay movies that have some very exceptional set pieces in them. And Antoine Fuqua, whether you like or love Antoine Fuqua or not, he's a very solid director. He's a little workmanlike, but he knows how to put together a story. He does imbue his stuff, even if it's a little meatheady at times. He imbues it with a little extra sauce, a little extra subtext, something slightly deeper than the surface level stuff, you know? Every Equalizer movie kind of deals with a different subtext, you know? Equalizer 1... If memory serves me correct, it's been a minute since I've watched Equalizer 1, but it's kind of like, it deals with a lot of like kind of working class struggle. It deals with kind of sex trafficking. And then, you know, and what kind of, what is worthy violence? What does it mean to be an avenger of those that have been afflicted, you know, usually by organized crime? The Equalizer 2 is about kind of community coming together. You know, he finds himself in the hood, kind of, and he takes a young man under his wing. It's a very, like, positive message. It's actually, like, has a very, like, kind of saccharine, sweet core that I don't really mind. I think because of Denzel Washington, it sells it very well. They're, like, kind of, like, very well-directed, direct-to-video movies that are elevated by Fuqua's direction of set pieces and Denzel's performances. Denzel Washington's the kind of guy... He could read the phone book, and I would like to watch Denzel Washington. So I was pretty stoked. I was pretty stoked for The Equalizer 3. I don't know why. I'm glad to see that it did pretty well. I think it actually did pretty well. Seems like people are enjoying The Equalizer 3. This is the leanest and meanest of all the Equalizers. There's barely any fat here. Because if there was a criticism you could lob at the first two, is that they're a little long. They drag on a little bit. There's maybe one too many subplots. This one, they just went lean and mean. They kind of cut all that shit out, and you can tell that there's some that's supposed to be there, which I would say is a little bit of a criticism because some of it's cut out, and you feel that it's cut out. Like you can feel that there's just kind of something missing here. There's some stuff with Dakota Fanning that's not really lining up, and they make this big thing at the end where it all turns around and Dakota Fanning's like related to somebody from previous Equalizer movies, and it's supposed to be this big reveal moment, and and maybe like the passing of a torch or something like that. It's not really a spoiler, but they cut a lot of stuff out that would have built towards that conclusion. But that's okay. They make this Denzel showcase. It's not I don't think it's as violent as the other two. I know a lot of people there's been a lot has been said about, there's like two main action set pieces which are incredible, but that's kind of it. It is a little bit more of a character drama. It's a little bit more dealing with Robert McCall's kind of plight as a man at this point in his life, having done the things he's done, having lived the existence he's lived, being a man of violence. However righteous, he's a man of violence, and him trying to reconcile that with kind of wanting to live a peaceful life. What is the spiritual toll of that? That's the subtext of Equalizer 3. It's not it doesn't go very deep with any of that stuff, but it is there. And a lot of it is presented through Denzel's performance. And I can't say this enough. Like, Denzel elevates these movies to places they really don't deserve. Because he can get so much across with just his physicality. Just the way he approached this character from like as a physical being. There's kind of like this weird, not weird. Weird's the wrong way to put it, but there's this kind of ominous, hulking presence that he brings to it with a really like paternal soulfulness at the same time. He's like your dad, but he could fucking kill you. You'll always be safe around dad.
On a scale from 1 to 10, that's a 2. That's a 3. You don't want me to go to 4. I go to 4, you shit on yourself. You don't want that. I don't want that. They don't want that.
There's something kind of comforting about that, So he finds himself in Italy, and it's got kind of a structure, a little bit of a kind of a Western. It reminds me a lot, if you guys saw the Magnificent Seven, Antoine Fuqua cast Denzel Washington in the remake of Magnificent Seven. So this is kind of a little bit well-worn territory for them, and it does have a little bit of that vibe. Maybe a little bit more, what's the Pale Rider? Is that what I'm thinking of? No. High Plains Drifter. A little bit like High Plains Drifter. That's kind of what the movie reminded me of a little bit. In terms of its structure and even its approach to the character McCall. A little bit less of a son of a bitch, a little bit less of a bastard, but it is very similar. There's a lot of similarities. The beats are kind of familiar in that respect if you're familiar with that movie, which I think was a good thing. It was a smart move. It's kind of interesting because it has like kind of this meta aspect to it of it being a spaghetti western because it takes place in Italy, and it adds like a texture to the movie that if you know it's there, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool because Fuqua and Denzel are movie fans. They love the movies and they love making entertaining stuff, dude. There's no like pretension about Antoine Fuqua or Denzel Washington, really. I mean, the closest thing I've ever seen to a pretentious Denzel Washington performance is probably his Coen Brothers Macbeth, but I also like that. I actually just rewatched it like a couple months ago. Holds up pretty well. This, all culminates in like this big kind of showdown with the bad guys, which a lot of people have. When I hear this all the time, anytime there's like an action movie where somebody just goes and kills a bunch of people, it's like, oh, it turns into a slasher film. He kind of embodies the spirit of Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. And I guess in some respects you could say that is kind of like that, just because there's a coldness to the way he's dispatching the bad guys in this movie. There's kind of a cold brutality to it. Like he enjoys it on some level, which kind of wraps back into the themes of the film, the subtext of the movie about like his spiritual struggle with what he's doing, even if he's ultimately having to do bad things to stop bad people. To have to bring about good, he has to just do something bad. Like it's he's tasked with that. But there's a great like set piece at the end of the movie that the movie kind of builds up to very well. Another thing Fuqua does pretty good in this movie, and he doesn't, like, pretty much in all of his movies. I'm trying to think of a movie of his that's like really bad. Maybe The Call? Is that what it's called? The one with Jake Gyllenhaal that was like a Netflix movie. It wasn't awful or anything, and actually it was really good up until like the last 10 minutes. But he does a really good job with building suspense and kind of not giving you that sweet release. Holding you off, keeping you on the edge, edging you, if you will. Yikes! Up until the end of the movie, and he does it really masterfully. And a lot of this is because of Denzel. A lot of it's because of Denzel. Denzel's understanding of how to pace a character, how to pace things like personal revelation, with physicality, with action, hitting those beats. It's a very tight script, I would say. Like, it's very well constructed. It kind of, in a way that's like almost generic. And you would think that's a bad thing, but when it comes to movies like this, that's kind of what you want. You need to have something, a foundation that's very solid, that kind of understands the fundamentals of telling a story, so that you can heap all this other cool shit up on top of it. It's something actually that even though I like these movies, and I'm not slagging them off because I really enjoy these movies, but the John Wick movies, especially 3 and 4, struggle with that a little bit. They get away from structure a little too much, and it becomes like a little too much, especially John Wick 4. Even though I really enjoy it, I could still point that. I could still be critical, okay? I could still be a critical man, yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed The Equalizer 3, if you can't tell. I enjoyed it for what it was. Don't go in here thinking you're going to see, like, the next great thing. It's not, there is kind of a forgettableness to it, but there's a pleasant, mediocre nature to it. Which is, even that's being a little harsh. I think it's maybe a notch above that, but there's a pleasant mediocreness to it. It's the kind of movie that I like to, like, kind of take on a lazy weekend and just and marathon. Like, at some point I'll probably have nothing to do. Maybe the wife and the kids are off doing something else, and I got nothing to do but eat Doritos and pizza and hang out on the couch. I would just have an Equalizer marathon, and I would feel very satisfied with my junk food and my junk food. You know what I mean? Anyways, yeah, that's going to do it for me. I really enjoyed it. I guess this is very rambling. I haven't done one of these in a while, so I apologize for that. But if you get a chance to see it in the theater, I would definitely go see it in the theater. I'm happy that it did well. It seems like people are responding to it. I don't know if this is supposed to be the end of the McCall story. I mean, they kind of imply, spoiler alert, or not really a spoiler alert. Well, I guess I said it before, but they kind of imply that Dakota Fanning is now the Equalizer. So we'll see. I have a feeling that's probably not going to come to fruition, but this did pretty well. Denzel can put butts in seats, man. Like, he's one of those actors who's just like, oh, a new Denzel Washington movie. I will go see that. But yeah, and so I did. All right. I'm out of here before I embarrass myself anymore. Goodbye.